Hi, I'm Jeff Brady. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Better Choices Equals Better Lives broadcast. Today's How To Talk is going to be on the subject of what if you were the owner? Would you hire you? But before we get into it, let's get a smile on your face. You know, on the mission trips, we go on a lot of trips, and you've probably heard about on the mission field, when they're making a big stew, a big pot of stew, man, they'll use gazelles, they'll use antelope, they'll use giraffe, rhinoceros, hippopotamuses, they'll throw everything into that big pot of soup, except they just won't use rabbits. Now you say, why won't they use a rabbit in their stew? Because nobody likes a hare in their stew. Ha! Gotcha. All right, friend, now that you're smiling, let's go on. If you were the owner, think about it. If you were the owner, would you hire someone like yourself to work in your business? Now, that's an interesting question because some people are going to rise up and they're going to come into positions of ownership. And some people are going to just be employees all their life, and that's fine. But the whole thing, if you were the business owner, would you hire you? Here are some questions I want you to think about, ask you. Are you a person, are you a worker who's on time? You know the old phrase, on time, all the time. I remember I was at Scott Air Force Base, and they had one of the tanker airships there that, well, I think it was a KC-135 if I'm not mistaken. And they had a motto. They said, we are on time, every time, all the time, each time. And I thought about that. You know, if we would just show up. I remember I was at doing a funeral. I'm a pastor, and the funeral director told me, he said, Jeff, do you know of anybody who I could hire that could give me 7 hours work for 8 hours pay? I said, did you say that wrong? He says, no, if I got 7 hours work out of somebody for an 8-hour payday, I would be very glad. He says, it's hard to get people just to come to work, just to come even on time. And I thought, man, have we really slid that much towards being slothful that way? Are you the kind of worker that's on time? Good question to ask. Do you show up? Or do you make excuses? You know, when I used to work at UPS for 5 years going through my college education, I got a couple of degrees there working, and I appreciate that. I'd have to do student loans, parent loans. And when I worked at UPS, it was hard work. It was physically hard, unloading trucks, sorting, loading the trucks, all the work that we did through the night. But you know what? There's some nights you just didn't feel well. I had stomach ache, headache, whatever it might be. But you know, I had a motto, and I pass it on to you. You don't call into work, meaning calling off. You crawl into work. You don't feel it, you don't feel good, but you push yourself. And you know what, once you get into the routine of doing the work, you know, you get feeling doing okay. And there was times I went to work, no kidding, from work. I remember I played soccer the night before, and I got injured in my thigh, and I didn't know it, but my thigh was bleeding. I had ruptured an artery. It was a hematoma. And I went to work that night, and I remember my jeans kept getting tighter and tighter on my one leg. By the time I was done doing my work there through the night, I got it done, man. It was miserable and painful. And the supervisor says, Brady, you got to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. I was hospitalized for a week because of that open artery, and my goodness, but what an idea. Be the kind of employee that shows up. Doesn't make excuses, but just is there. On time, do you show up? Do you get along with others? That's so important, my friend, that we get along with others. Do you listen? How much money, millions, billions, I'm sure dollars, is wasted and lost because people just don't listen. They don't discipline themselves to listen to the directions, the instructions, maybe the changes on that shift or on that line that night. And so do you listen? Are you one that follows directions? Will you do your job, or are you always focused on maybe somebody else's other job, you know? That's important that we do our job. You're hired, you're paid to do a job and provide a service. Do you complain? Oh, I know we live in a day and age where people complain it's too hot, and then later it's too cold, or it's too much, too little, too much, and all this kind of stuff. Don't be that way. Be the kind of person that kind of energizes. You know, you go to work and you bring some enthusiasm, you bring some zip to it, and people like being around someone who's got a good attitude, you know, in their work. So don't complain. Will you sacrifice for the company you work for? You know, they hire you and you say, well, I put in my hours, I'm clocking out. Is the job done? Is everything finished? Is it ready to go and all? So, you know, it's important that we don't complain and that we sacrifice for the company. Are you respectful? You know, yes sir, no sir is a good policy to have. And being polite and being kind and honoring the customers. And how many times you and I have gone to some place and there was somebody that was wearing their feelings on their shirt, you know? They were just having a bad day and they let you know they're having a bad day. Are we that kind of employee that we're so much like that? I don't think that's what you want to be. Be respectful, sacrifice. Also, be clean in body. Man, make sure you smell good. It's so important with our breath, with our language, that we have a clean mouth. And you know, it's important that we're loyal. Loyal people are the ones that, you know, they're the ones that make a difference. Because, you know, all it takes is someone being disloyal to the boss, to the ship supervisor, to the company itself, and man, that's a trickle-down effect, like a snowball avalanching effect. It's important that we support the company we work for. And if you can't, it's time to resign. It's time to put in your 2 weeks notice and go somewhere else. But, you know, a lot of times we don't realize what we have until we lose it. And I think it's important that we're a good worker. You know what? Are you the nosy kind, where you're always into everybody else's business? Or do you do your own work? Do you bring your problems from home to your work and that's all you talk about? I remember one time going through the Walmart and the checkout lines, and there's some ladies having a conversation back and forth from one checkout lane to the other as the employees. And I kind of wanted to, you know, put my head over and say, hello, you know, you're here for the customers. You know, there's things that you need to be scanning. There's people waiting, and you guys are just up there yakking away. And they just didn't understand what it was to be a real good employee. So don't talk too much. Do your job. Stay focused. Do you take too many breaks? Some people, boy, they just can't get enough breaks. They just have to go to the bathroom, have to go out, have to, you know, be just not putting forth the effort. Are you that kind of person? Or are you better than that? Do you see your work as a privilege or as a burden? As a problem, as, oh, I have to go to work, versus, man, I get to go to work. You know, that's so important. Are you careful at work? There's so many workman comp claims that go on because someone's just careless, you know. They're just not watching what they're doing, paying attention, and people lose limbs that way. Some jobs are more dangerous than others, and it takes so much attention, all that. And do you finish what you start? I hope you're not a cocky worker. One that says, you know, you throw around your tenure, I've been here 20 years, 30 years, so, you know, I'm employed here because I have tenure. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter how many years you've worked, you're still supposed to be a worker. Matter of fact, you probably ought to be one of the best workers, the hardest workers, the most knowledgeable workers, because you've been there the longest. So, friends, listen, just some ideas I wanted to throw your way. If you were the owner of a business, would you hire you? You're coming in the door, the first impression, the first meeting, would you hire you? So think about it. Don't walk in there sloppy. Don't walk in there unprepared. Surely don't walk in late. Be punctual, be there, and smile, and know about what you're applying for that job, and make it a great experience. My name's Jeff Brady. I'm so glad you've taken time to watch this broadcast, and we call this Better Choices Equals Better Lives. So remember, friends, be good to everyone, because everyone's having a tough time. God bless you. Have a great day.